This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
All righty. Yeah, there he is. Where are you?
I'm at a park. Yeah, at a park, man. Just finished up a morning run. So just hanging out here in this good weather.
You're not running. Get the hell out of here. There's not
I
a
am
drop of
running.
sweat on your ass.
I just finished running like 5 minutes ago. I dried off for you. I dried off for you, Big O.
You're Douglas Edwards or something,
I
bro?
dried off for you, Big O.
Douglas Edwards played basketball at Miami High and at FSU. You know, you're a little young for his time. He was drafted by the Atlanta Hawks. I always used to freak out with Doug Edwards, right? Because I followed him. I used to watch him at Miami High, all these great teams. I don't know if you know about this, but Miami High is like the Boston Celtics of Florida. They have more state champions. You walk in, they have an old gym like in the 50s with second levels and everything. And they have the old what's that called? When the light's coming through the window pane, the old kind of field house. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, real classic. It's like you go in there, it's a historic place. So Doug Edwards, he could play 40 minutes and the dude would not have one bead of sweat on there. And it was like, yo, what's wrong with you? Like, are you normal or something? So you're Doug Edwards, bro, of media. I mean,
hey, man, I do.
5 minutes you might be sweating even more, bro. I mean, it's just 5 minutes later, it's like.
You see, I perfectly found this tree to sit under to hide from the sun. I do sweat, though. I do sweat.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, in a sauna. Sauna, right? That's when you're sweating.
No, when I'm doing high intensity work, I will say this was not a fast pace. I was just getting in a nice breeze, nice breezy. Probably more of a jog than a run, honestly.
Now Cham is the guy you draft for your pickup game because he's clearly in shape. I'm not. He is, okay. All right. Let's get to it. Gesicki tagged. No brainer, obviously. And then 2, can he challenge? Will he challenge? And can he beat the tag and make it a receiver tag instead of a tight end tag?
No, those are all different questions. I mean, I think there's a good chance they do challenge. Like from what I had heard throughout the process, his team wanted to make clear that he thought himself as a big slot receiver rather than a tight end. And if you remember a few days ago or maybe a week ago, Chris Greer talked to us at the Combine. And he said that there had been really no significant long-term talks with Gesicki and his team. It was further along with Agba. So a reason for that is the evaluation for Gesicki is more of a slot receiver salary, whereas the Dolphins are viewing him closer to the tag and a tight end salary. So I definitely think that there is a good chance they file a grievance. As far as winning it, I think that's going to be a far harder challenge. If you remember, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, Jimmy Graham tried to do the same thing. He said, hey, I'm a receiver. I play in the slot more than I do inline receiving. And the arbitrator said that if you play in the slot, that's considered a tight end role. So they considered that to still be a tight end. So Mike Gesicki's best argument would be I play a wide receiver. I play out wide more than I do anything else. And if you look at the numbers, he plays slot receiver first most, outside second most, and then inline receiver third most. So although I want all these players to get their money and Gesicki to get as much as he can, I think that he's going to be playing on a $10.9 million tight end tag this year.
Yeah, and I think it's and considering everything, I think it's a smart move. Man, I've watched, like I talked about this before you came on. I watched Brent Jones. I've watched Jackson for the Dolphins years ago. I've watched tight ends all throughout the history of the NFL. Kellen Winslow Sr. Plenty of guys, they weren't blockers, dude. And we have plenty of guys in this league right now that play tight end, and they're not blockers, dude. Jonnu Smith is not a guy, which you follow, right? He's not really considered a blocker, right? Mm-hmm. So this whole thing that your tight end has to, because Omar has this complete, fixation with Gesicki not blocking. To me, it's not a big deal as long as you're a weapon. If you're like Smythe, I like what he's done and he's grown into it, but he's not the dynamic player that Gesicki is, or Jonnu Smith, or several other young tight ends out there that are athletic. The Goddard guy in Philadelphia, that guy's not considered a blocker either, but he's a good
He's a
pass
better
guy.
blocker. He's definitely a
Yeah,
better blocker than Gesicki.
He is better. He is
Yes.
better. He is better. But he is better. Well, I mean, better than Gesicki
Hey,
is not really saying much, by the way.
right. So I'll look at it this way, man. Mike Gesicki does not want to block. I think if you asked him, he would tell you that that's not his forte. Big O, I'm not sure how Gesicki would do blocking you or I, to be honest. But what he does do is he's a great pass catcher. He's probably top 5 at his position. And that is a skill set that you have. And you heard the coaches speak to getting the players in their best skill set. So one thing that Gesicki does do is he finds ways to catch the football. He finds ways to make plays on third down in the red zone, in key situations and tight windows. And that's an asset when you have a young quarterback. Now, that being said, when you have the new scheme, and this is the big question I have, and I've asked some people on that staff, is the tight end has been a blocking position in the 49er scheme. So if you're keeping Mike Gesicki, is he going to be a role like he was previously, where he's truly a receiver, a slot receiver, and you have another tight end on the field like a Durham Smythe at all times,
Right.
and that's your offense? Or are you going to try, which they've kind of referenced, to make Gesicki a inline tight end and use him in both roles and try to make him better as a blocker? So I think there are two different routes they can take. And to me, I just don't know if Gesicki's ever going to be the blocker that you want him to be. So I think it would be dangerous for them to try to say, hey, we're going to make him an inline blocker, because I think that hurts your run game. So that's one element I am looking, and that's a coaching staff deal. Do they try to force him to be something he's not, or do they say, hey, we'll adjust our scheme and play more true to tight end, even though it's a true tight end and a slot receiver?
By the way, the Premier League has ended their broadcasting partnership in Russia and is donating $1 million to Ukraine Relief Fund. Holy crap, dude. Like, everybody's dumping them.
Good for them. Good for them.
Yeah, definitely. We got to stop buying oil from them fools. All right. Anyway, so let's get back to this. All right. So good. And listen, in the end, here's where I lay the responsibility. I lay it on Mike McDaniel. I lay it on the offensive coordinators. They're the ones that have got to figure it out. Other teams figure it out. Look, you came from a team that I bragged about for several years, not for the quarterback, because the quarterback, benefited from it. But Arthur Smith is just a phenomenal play designer, and he knew how to get, and he had multiple tight ends at times. So he knew how to get guys involved in the offense on a consistent basis. And so to me, that's really what it's all about. It's about the offensive coordinator using his creativity in finding ways to get, I don't care if it's your tight end, your fullback, your receivers, whatever it is. But if you got a guy that's got a talent like Gesicki, now your responsibility is to make him productive on your offense. And I'm with you. Make him productive on your offense. Now you're blocking.
Oh, absolutely. And one thing I'm excited to see is, like, I think we talked about this before. They hired new coaches with focus on two main positions, tight end and offensive line. So their offensive coordinator, Frank Smith, he's been an O-line coach and a tight end coach. John Embry, their tight end coach and assistant head coach, has been a tight end coach throughout his career, a well-respected guy I've heard a lot of good things about in the league. So those are two maybe top 5 coaches on your staff, assistant coaches on your staff, who will be able to work hands-on with Mike Gesicki, with some of those tight ends in the room, Hunter Long, Durham Smythe, they bring him back. So I think that Gesicki could even be a better player than he already is. I think one thing that Gesicki has that a lot of players don't have is his athletic ability. I would imagine there's not 3 tight ends in the league that are more athletic than him. So I would like them to continue to expand his role. I think that he can be more than just a jump ball receiver. I'd like to see them use him in a variety of different routes and ways. So
yeah, he can run routes.
I don't see why Gesicki couldn't become a 1,000-yard receiver in the new offense. He's been right on the brink. I think this year he was at 800. He can become one of those receivers in the conversation that we talk about. George Kittle, Travis Kelce, some of these other top tight ends in the league. Gronk, when he's healthy, I don't think there's any reason why Gesicki can't enter his name in those conversations. So that's one element when you bring Gesicki back. And I am thinking that, if I had to call it today, I think they let him play on the franchise tag because there's some of a waiting see in how he fits in the new offense. But I do think that when you look at your young talent and players that you groom, given where Mike Gesicki came up with when he was a second round pick and everybody was hating on him and he was blocking everybody on Twitter because everybody was saying something negative about him. And where he is now, I think that's the growth you want to see development wise. If you're a front office, if you're a coaching staff from a young player, so I think that he's just really scratching the surface of what he can be.
Somebody put there that, hey, Gesicki will improve his blocking with these guys, and I'm not going to go that far, and then you say, well, he's not going to be a blocker, and I don't want to go that far either, but I do think that with these guys, where I think he will pick up his blocking is out in the open field.
Mm-hmm.
Is where he'll pick up a DB or a safety and kind of get in front of him to help the running game. That's where I think his blocking improves. The inline stuff, I'm with you. You know what I mean? The out in the open field stuff, that's where I'm with one of the texters that put that there, that I think that's what they're going to do. They're going to use him as a weapon, but they're also going to use him in the blocking scheme, but it's more of the open field blocking scheme, which is a little bit easier for him to try to hold off a safety or a DB or somebody like that in the open field.
No, absolutely. And obviously my comment about he can't block
I got you.
Tongue in cheek. He can block NFL players. But I do think you're right. I think that his size as a natural, 245-pound guy, 6'6", he's winning that matchup against most corners, most nickel guys, most safeties. So it's just a matchup. You don't want him going against edge rushers on a regular basis, but if he's going against those smaller DBs, then that's the position that you want. So like I said, I'm waiting to see how he evolves in this game. I reported this yesterday on NFL Network, but I know they want another playmaker on offense opposite Jalen Waddle to be able to get him in. So it's going to be interesting to see how they fit all these pieces. I have a question. What does that mean for Devontae Parker? Because if you bring in another receiver and you have Jalen Waddle on the field and you have Mike Gesicki, to me, that are three receivers already. And if you're already adding another tight end, there isn't really a room for a Devontae Parker. So I'm watching free agency. If they do make a move for an Amari Cooper or one of these other receivers out there, then I think you could see a situation where Devontae Parker is on the trading block.
South Florida kid. So I know people are going to want Amari Cooper. He's a terrific route runner, precise route runner. And that, my friend, is priceless in this league. He's got terrific hands. He would be a great complement to Waddle. If he's really going to be released, your thoughts on that? Is that a guy? Do you hear that they might be targeting? And by the way, a guy that Reggie McKenzie drafted in Oakland.
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard that name a couple times when I was in Indianapolis last week for the Combine, connected with the Dolphins. Like you mentioned, he's a South Florida kid. I think he'd want to play here. The Dolphins are definitely valuing route running, separation, playmaking ability in the open field. They want that to be a central element of their offense. And we all get obsessed with talking about Deebo Samuel in the offense, but really what Deebo did best is force defenders to have conflict in the open field. And whether it's in the backfield or in the receiving game, we've already seen Jalen Waddle do that. We haven't seen.
Cam, can you give me a Bo Jackson? Can you get me a Jerry Rice? Hey, why don't you go get me a Randy Moss also? You know what I mean? It's just it's the same shit that we do all the time.
Yeah.
There's only one Deebo Samuel, dude. And all of a sudden now we got a part of Dolphin Nation that wants to put Lynn Bowden Jr. in that position already. Like, hey, don't look out for Lynn Bowden Jr. He could be a Deebo's. Like, are we going to set this kid up for failure too now? Come on.
Yeah.
Can we let Lynn Bowden be Lynn Bowden, please? Let's find out what Lynn Bowden is.
I just want Lynn Bowden to be healthy. That's all my expectation for Lynn Bowden is. If he's healthy and he makes the roster, then I think that's a good start for Lynn Bowden, given where he's been the first couple of years of his career.
I don't think people realize that how difficult it is to find a guy like Deebo Samuel.
Yep.
Like a tough inside runner that's a receiver.
Oh, yeah. I think it's a copycat league, Big O. Everybody wants the new sexy thing. Now Deebo Samuel, he's a sexy thing, and everybody wants him. It's crazy. 5 years ago, the knock on Deebo Samuel would have been he doesn't have a true position. He's not a smooth route runner. He's not polished. What are you going to do? And now you get a creative offensive coordinator like Kyle Shanahan. I'll tell you what, Deebo Samuel and probably 25 other offenses would not be Deebo Samuel because they don't have the creativity to use him in his best skill set. So you
By
need
the
to.
way,
That's
he might be Cordero Patterson bouncing around the league.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at what Cordell Patterson's doing in Atlanta last year. Everybody's like, where did this guy come from? Well, he's been in the league for 10 years. Finally, a coach decided that maybe we should play him at running back versus playing him outside receiver where he's struggling to get off press.
By the way, who's the play designer in Atlanta? I'm sorry.
That's Arthur Smith. Very good coach. Very
Okay,
good coach out there. And a tight ends coach by background, by the way.
Right.
I'm a big proponent. I think I've told you this, Big O. I'm a big proponent of position coaches other than quarterback getting chances to be schemers, be play callers, whether tight end coach, receiver coach like McDaniel's path is, or running back coaches, because they have different visions of the game. I know everything is quarterback based in our league, but the vision of a tight end coach, you look at things a little differently coming up. And you see that with Arthur Smith. You see that with Mike McDaniel. So I'm excited to see that element of his game, what he does for the wide receivers, given that he's a play caller coming from that side of the field.
Well, and look, the common denominator in a lot of that stuff that we're talking about here, whether it's Tennessee or Atlanta or in other places, is that it comes from the heart and soul of the running game and also a short, controlled passing game. So you can maintain possession and move the chains and move the clock and have more possessions than your opponent at times. All of those things, all of those elements play into it. And I think that's part of the reason why Miami has been failing so much for so long, because the heart and soul of their offense has never been the running game. They have never been able to punch the opponent in the mouth and shove the ball down their throats like Tennessee does to make life easy for everybody else. Like when Mahomes is going well, it's because they can run and they can block, and then that allows them to be explosive. We saw San Francisco and many other teams. When you get that running game involved, dude, it just changes everything and allows everything else to be a lot easier.
Now, you're on the money. You mentioned Tennessee. I know this is going to be your favorite topic, but look at when Ryan Tannehill left Miami and got to Tennessee. And we all talked about, or a lot of people talked about, how his game evolved and how he became comeback player of the year. He's a different quarterback. And look at what they did differently. They have an offense that had a really strong offensive line. They're getting older now, but at the time, in a top 5 offensive line, they have a probably the best running back in football in Derrick Henry. And so you can really thrive off of play action as a quarterback, a lot of one-on-one coverage. So that's something that I would love to see this year. I don't know if it's a one-year journey. It may take 2 years for them to rebuild this offensive line and really rebuild this running game to where it needs to be, being a top 10, top 15 group. But I think the first step would be to make sure they're not bottom 5 as they've been the last 3 or 4 years.
And by the way, they had 2 running backs last year, because when Henry went down, Foreman saved their ass, because he's better than anything Miami's had.
And Tennessee's a prime example of believing in your scheme. Mike Vrabel's had 3 different offensive coordinators in his time there, but they still run the Tennessee scheme regardless of who they are. And they're going to run this power run game after you. And that's why you can grab a guy like Deontay Foreman off the street. Literally, he was on the street for 2 months.
Yeah.
They pick him up, and he almost had 1,000 yards rushing in 8 games. So that to me tells you that if you have a plug-and-play system, and that, I love running backs, but that's sort of where you get into the value of a running back, because if any guy can run for 100 yards a game in that system, that makes it easier for you to say, hey, I'm going to spend value at the offensive line position. I'm going to spend value at the receiver position, and then still draft one of those running backs in the day 2, day 3 selection, as you've seen, Kyle Shanahan do in the past.
The real secret in Tennessee, I did figure it out, by the way. I want you to know. It's really all about the power of the hair, because you really notice it's called the power dread is what it is. Henry has, and then Foreman got there and he kind of developed the power dread, and then that's it.
Right.
It's once you unleash it, it's over, bro. We had it here with Ricky Williams for a little while,
Right. Right.
We had the power dread. You got it. The powers of the dreads, bro.
Hey, the dreadbacks run differently, right? It's the Florida vibe. You know, Ricky Williams there, Derrick Henry, he's a Florida guy too, North Florida, but Florida nonetheless. You know,
Yeah,
you run different with the dreads. I'm with you. The dreadheads run different.
that's where the power is, my brother. All right, so what are the chances that Amari Cooper is a Miami Dolphin? What would be the percentages Cameron Wolfe would put on Amari Cooper? Because I hated the fact anybody would mention to me, hey, trade for a receiver, trade for a running back. I hated that. It's like, dude, do you realize you could sign them? You don't have to give away draft picks and money to do that stuff. So your thoughts, Amari Cooper, what's the percentage?
So first, he has to reach the market officially, which I think he will. There's been
Right.
talks about trade. I think his salary is too big, from what I'm hearing, that he will get released. Although right now they're trying to see if they can get a trade for a late round pick.
Is it less of a cap hit if they trade him than flat out cut?
Well, I think he's got some guaranteed money still on his token, and it is, and they would want value. They would still want value. So I don't know if the cap hit changes a lot, but I think they would see, hey, instead of releasing Amari Cooper, if we can get a 6th round pick for him, that's better than nothing. So I think that's the view, but I think ultimately he will get released because I think he's going to get less than that $20 million salary that I think he's due right now. But I don't think it'll be a lot less. You know, what's going to be interesting is how quickly the receiver market moves. If you remember last year, that market was very, very slow. It took like 3 days for the top receiver to get off the market, and the numbers were less than they were last year. And so that's why the Dolphins ended up getting Will Fuller at a lesser rate. So I think that you're going to see Chris Godwin already tagged. Devontae Adams is going to get tagged. So I think Amari Cooper, if I had to put a number on it, maybe 25%. I think that's probably fair because I think the Dolphins. I think there's a 50% chance the Dolphins walk away with a new starting receiver from free agency, and I think there's probably a half percentage of chance that that's Amari Cooper.
Yeah. By the way, Will Fuller ended up becoming a lemon, bro. So it wasn't a bargain. Right.
It wasn't. But remember when we saw it at the time, we were all like, we get the speedy receiver who can open things up for Tua. It's going to be excellent. And that's the dangers of free agency, right? Everything looks great until you open the package and you realize why some of these players hit free agency.
It's a beautiful thing. All right, follow him on Twitter at Cameron Wolfe. Catch his work there at the NFL Network and catch him twice a week here doing his thing with the Miami Dolphins Report. Cam, thank you, my brother. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you, Big O.
You got it. There you go. Cameron Wolfe.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.